everybody. My name is Adrienne. I am with the Oklahoma Insurance Department. Thank you guys for joining us. I see a lot of you are return people, so I've seen you in one of these before, so I'm so grateful that you are joining us again for the 2021 Hoodwinked Fraud Prevention Series. The Oklahoma Insurance Department, sometimes we will refer to that as the OID, but we are a state agency. We do not sell insurance. Our job is to make sure that insurance companies are able to financially meet the policyholders' needs in the event that they have claims. And we also are here to make sure any consumers out there have somewhere to call if they need help. If you have questions about your homeowner's policy, your auto policy, your life insurance, or just your health insurance, we have an entire team here that is able to help with that. You can call us at any time. Our website is oid.ok.gov, and I will put that in the chat. I want to mention that during this webinar, you'll be able to see and hear us, but we cannot see or hear you. So if you have any questions, and we hope that you do, I ask you to type them in the chat. It's on the bottom right-hand side of my screen, or probably on the bottom of yours. And in a minute, I'll say hello so you can see it. But you are welcome to put questions there, and we'll get to those at the end. Wanted to mention just real quick, we started this fraud prevention series a few years ago. We used to go out in the community all over the state. We called it the Road Show, and we hope to do that again in the future. But I would like to know from you guys if you prefer a virtual option or if you prefer an in-person. Typically, when we did the in-person, we would go and you would be there for a couple hours and you'd get all of our speakers at once versus every week. So just let us know in chat if you don't mind, if you have a preference, so we can plan for next year. Okay. Oh, and we have several partner agencies on this. So we partner with the Oklahoma Attorney General's, the Oklahoma Security Commission. We partner with the Oklahoma Banking Association, which you'll hear from shortly, as well as AARP Oklahoma. And we have 2 new partners this year. We started partnering with the Oklahoma Social Security Administration and the National Insurance Crime Bureau. So those 2 are new this year. So anyway, those are our partners. And if you missed any of those, you can find all of them on the OID YouTube page. So I will link that as well. Okay, so now I'm going to kick it over to Ray Walker, who is the Divisional Director of the Medicare Assistance Program, so he can explain what he and his team does. Ray.
Thanks, Adrienne, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Adrienne said, I'm with the Medicare Assistance Program at the Oklahoma Insurance Department. We are part of OID. We are funded by 3 federal grants. The SHIP grant that gives us money to do general education about Medicare, and the Senior Medicare Patrol grant, which is the S&P grant. That's the one that is helping us to fund this series of webinars on fraud. So we're trying to educate people on how they can protect themselves from becoming a victim of fraud. We want to give you the tools that you need so that you don't have to worry about somebody getting into your stuff. And then that 3rd grant that we've got is our MIPA grant that helps us go out and identify low-income seniors that might need some assistance in affording their prescription drugs as well as their health care costs. So if you've got any issues or questions about any of those, you can give us a call at 1-800-763-2828, and one of our counselors would be happy to talk to you about any of those subjects. So again, that number was 1-800-763-2828. But let's go ahead and get started with our program today. I'm very excited to introduce a friend of mine. I've known her for several years now. The first time I heard Elaine speak was the first year that I had started at the insurance department about 11 years ago. And she was speaking to a group out at Francis Tuttle Votech. And I was so impressed by the information that she was able to share with the group. And I was very excited several years later when I got the opportunity to work with her on programs like this. So Elaine Dodd spent 22 years in law enforcement with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, retiring in 1995 as their director. Now the executive vice president of the fraud division at the Oklahoma Bankers Association, she provides training and investigative assistance for banks and fraud training to thousands of bankers and customers. In 2013, she was the recipient of the State Attorney General's Brad Edwards Consumer Champion Award and was inducted into the Oklahoma Women's Hall of Fame. Elaine also is the recipient of the 2014 FBI Directors Community Leadership Award. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing what you've got to share with us.
Good morning. I thought I needed to unmute. I'm sure. Can you hear me, Ray?
Sure can.
Okay, and I'm sharing my screen, so here we go.
Looks good.
All righty, we should be there and good to go. Good morning, everyone. So excited to get to touch base with all of my friends in Oklahoma, including Ray and Adrian, who have just been fabulous to keep this event going all this time. It's a huge effort on their parts, and it's also a huge benefit to Oklahomans across the state. I would remind you that you can see a repeat of this. Some of this I will go through fairly rapidly because some people have heard this a number of times. That I've got a lot of new things in here, but on the things that are kind of a repetition of the past, I may go through them more rapidly or not read every line on the slide. If that happens, go to the insurance YouTube page, as Adrian said, and you can revisit all of this again. So it will all be there for you, including all the links and all the information. So don't feel like you have to get everything down right now if I go through something quickly. So please understand that. I do have a lot of tools at the end of this. I'm going to talk more about that here in just a second. And this is not advancing for me, Ray. I'm going to end the show and reshare or restart. Let's see if that might make it happier. There we go.
Yay.
Amazing technology right there. I work with the cyber folks all the time, but I'm at an age, you heard all my past years, you can add it up and you can figure I did not get in on the beginning of cyber, or I certainly was late to the game. So what are we doing at OBA? I always keep this slide in because that is our feed store in Blair, and that is my background. That is my heart in Oklahoma, and my dad had the feed store in a little community in Southwest Oklahoma, and it was Mayberry, and that's what I always tell our customers and our bankers. Most people in Oklahoma were raised in a very Mayberry-like fashion. So that's how we need to approach when we're trying to help people be safer. That is one of the big things for us to remember. I got to use this slide when I presented at the White House a number of summers ago, and the event there was showing how the Oklahoma bankers are just amazing for helping all of our seniors. So that is a great thing. I also kept this one in. Risk assessment basics, the probability here is high and the severity is serious. I love the look on that pup's face because it's like, oh no, this may not go well. I keep it in there to remind me to say this to you though. It is all about prioritizing. Do not worry about all the silly stuff that's not going to get you. Every day we turn on the TV and it's like identity theft and this will get you and that'll get you. We don't want to scare people. That is never the point. What we want to do is be sure that people know how to be safe and which things are important. And that's why in this presentation, I have a lot of action steps. I have a lot of tools you can use at the end and tons of action steps. And those are the things that I really want you to pay attention to, because in using those, you will find that you don't have to be scared about everything. You can be empowered to know, I got this. We were talking just before this presentation to Ray and Adrian, and there were a couple of things that they were doing that they have learned through the years in hearing all the different wonderful presenters that do this. Also, I want to give a caveat and add a person to all of our partners. As you heard, we work closely with all of the other agencies, AARP, Secretary Securities, AG's office, Secret Service because I work with them also, but Social Security, all of the ones that we partner with on this, as well as insurance and our bankers are all working as a team to keep everybody safe. So that is the thing that we do to help everyone. This has been in my presentation forever, the things you need to keep safe. The biggest thing that you want to protect, or one of the biggest, is your bank account numbers. You never want to give those out to anybody, and that remains the same. That's the same as your investment numbers. If you have investment accounts, same. You're not giving those out to anybody. You know to protect your credit card numbers where you can. Social Security, everybody knows that's an important number to protect. Your PIN numbers, I'm going to show you an easy way to protect it at the ATMs here in a few minutes. Your passwords we'll talk about more too. So those things are just what you're going to do to stay safe. How people get your information, the phone and internet scams are still King Kong of ways to get your information. They will call you, they will get on the internet and get you to give them information. Stealing mail is still huge. Where we used to see, and still do some, where people are stealing mail using sticky tape into a mailbox. Now they're just busting into the whole blue boxes. So I now try to take, if I have something really important, if I have checks in there or anything with numbers that I want to protect, I'm going to take it into the post office, or you can take it into your office if that's an option for you. Searching through the trash, dumpster diving, still an Olympic sport. And the elephant in the room is still the breaches. There's breaches everywhere. The Equifax breach was huge. The Target breach years ago was huge. It just continues. Every few weeks we hear of major breaches that have happened. So it's into the way millions that are impacted. Probably all Americans are impacted at some level. So we've all technically had identity theft. A great site, just if you're a tech and you're really interested in these kinds of things, Krebs on Security is still one of your best places to learn a lot about the breaches and things to do, including credit freeze. Why not, folks? You can do a credit freeze for free now. So you can contact the big three credit agencies and put the freeze on. If you want to get out a new loan, get credit, get a new credit card, you can take off that freeze. It's easy to do. I also think it's important. I have a My Social Security account. You do it at ssa.gov. Do it before the bad guys do it for you, because we have literally seen occasions where people did not have their own presence on that site. The fraudsters set up an account for them and then began to divert their Social Security funds. So those are important things that can help you, as well as the big three, which is consistent. This has always been in my presentations. Look at your credit card statements at least monthly. Everyone can look online now. Same with their bank statements. I look at both of those online, not monthly, but at least every other day, just to see if there's anything on there that doesn't make sense. So you can catch something at the outset so it doesn't get to be a bigger problem, and then reviewing your credit report throughout the year. What you're looking for, I always get questions like, well, what are we looking for in the credit report? It's credit cards you didn't take out, addresses where you haven't lived, information that's not you. So that's an important thing to know. What is elder financial exploitation? That is the biggest thing that we see out there, and the most nefarious, because our elder population, of which I am one now, that's our most valuable citizens, folks. That is the people, those are the people that we most want and need to protect, and the most at risk for all of this. The reason that the fraudsters get into their pocketbooks is because the fraudsters know that that's where the money is. Seniors have retirement money. Seniors have money that they have set back so that they could live out their golden years in a better way. Whereas if they hit middle age or even younger people, they're going to have people paying off student loans and people paying medical bills and paying soccer fees for the kids. Seniors have the money. That is the reason that they're going to pick on them, and that is why we have to protect them the most. Some of the reasons that older people can be at risk, they have the regular income and accumulated assets, but the biggest, the third one on this list I've highlighted and bolded because be lonely and socially isolated is the biggest thing that can happen to folks. And what that means to you, most of the people I'm guessing that are listening to this today have a social circle. You have family you talk to, you have a church circle, you have bunco groups, whatever it is that you do, you have something that where you get out and talk to people. If you don't have that network, you can be lonely and isolated, and that's when the fraudsters can call your phone and say, I'm the son you never had, or I love you, Dad, or those just to suck you in. So those are big things. Another one that is always huge is being vulnerable due to a grief from a loss. The fraudsters will look at the media and look at, they can look at obituaries and see where someone has lost a spouse, and that's who they're going to pick on, because they know that they are reeling from that loss that was so valuable to them, and they can really get in their hooks into them pretty easily. So those are some of the things, as well as the others. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything. Again, the older adults are vulnerable because they might fear retaliation by the exploiter. Maybe they're the ones that are feeding them or bringing the food into the home, or the ones on which they are dependent. They might be a little cognitively impaired. They might be dependent on a family member who pressures them for money. On that note, powers of attorney and guardianships. We have a wonderful group in the state. The folks over at Legal Aid are wonderful at helping people on these types of issues. But I would encourage everyone to think about why you still can make those decisions, who you want to have as your power of attorney, and whether or not you need to trust them. In some cases, you might want to have one person who inherits and another person who is your medical guardian, or you may have someone that you absolutely trust for both. But you need to think about where should that trust lie for you, and think about that question throughout the years. Part of the reason that we say this, we had 2 cases in Midwest City a summer ago that one of them was a young man who stole $260,000 of his grandma's $300,000 that she had for her retirement. I just spent the money on himself. And another was a bio child, found her bio mom and said, Mom, I love you, I want to take care of you, and stole about $80,000 from her bio mom. So just be careful and assess throughout the years, is this someone that I really should trust and depend on? Also, another thing that I didn't used to have in this, and it is equally critical, who do you have or want on your bank account? Something that I hope that people understand and realize, if someone is on your bank account, they have total control over those monies. We had an occasion just a few months back where a bank customer passed. She had wanted the money to go to family. She had a friend that was on the account who was helping her to do the financial things. And it's okay to have someone to help you. I mean, I get that. But because that friend was on her account and all the money was there, the family got nothing, and the friend took over all of the money. So the investment people use something called a trusted contact. It's not someone that is a signer on your account. If they're a signer on your account, they're entitled to any money that's in there. Trusted contacts are just a representative that the investment people can get hold of and be sure that everything is going well. Just someone you can check with to be sure that their person is not getting taken to the cleaners with a fraudster. So that is something that I would love for our banks to be able to do, and I'm not sure that we won't be able to, or that they're not able to already do that. You might ask your local banks, and that's the thing about having a community banker that you can talk to and you know who you're dealing with. It's just wonderful. I love our banking system in Oklahoma. Examples of financial exploitation. We already talked about the power of attorney, theft of money by family members and caregivers, investment scams. We'll talk more about that, lottery and sweepstakes. The grandparent scam where they call in the middle of the night. Grandpa, it's your favorite grandson. I've been jailed. I was drinking. I'm embarrassed. Don't tell mom and dad. That's always how that one goes. We have one gentleman that I know of who sent out $72,000 based on one of those. So don't think it's always a tiny amount of money that goes out. It's whatever somebody might be able to scrape up, and it's devastating. Charity scams, I'm going to give you a great link to use for that. tax collectors that aren't real, telemarketers, telephone scams, ID theft, reverse mortgage. I've got another slide on that, and contractor fraud. All of those are out there. There are real reverse mortgages. I get a lot of questions on this very frequently. There is a real thing that allows people to stay in their home and not make their monthly payments, but it's a loan and it's subject to scammers. So you need to know who you're dealing with, that they're valid people, that they have your best interest at heart. Again, talk to your folks that you know, talk to folks in your social circle to see what they know, do some research on it. There is a great piece of consumer education on CFPB website, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, as well as one on Investopedia. So there's links that you can use for that if that's something you're considering. Who are the abusers? It can be absolutely anyone. And the biggest thing is listen to your gut feelings. That is a thing that when your gut clenches up and says this may not be right, it's because you've had an experience that did not go so well. So that is something that you need to be sure that you're listening to in your own gut. I had a case. A friend of mine had a customer that was in love with the guy, and when the friend with the bank asked the customer why she so trusted this person, the customer said, well, I have his picture right here, I'm in love with him. And she pulled out on her phone, she had this picture. She said, he's FBI, so I can trust him. This is Agent Mulder on the X-Files. I mean, it was a doggone TV show. There's no way that this guy was real, but she believed in it. Now, this is a great place to mention this to you. A lot of times when people send you information, it's pictures of romance scammers or that kind of thing. If you will Google reverse image or use 10i, which was suggested by the Social Security lady, which you should absolutely watch the piece that Knopfziger did. It was wonderful last week on the romance scams. If you didn't see it, I'd say get on the YouTube and pull that one up. She mentioned she uses 10i. I use Google reverse image. There are a number of ways, but you just put in the picture and then it says, hey, this appears all these places on the internet, and it would have been clear to anyone that was not just a guy that was a real romance partner. On that note, the romance scams are up 50% in 2020 over 2019. That is outrageous because they were already ridiculous. In these cases, they think that 1 out of 44 are reported, and the numbers are in the multiple hundreds of millions of dollars. So 44 times that, folks. The ways that people get in people's brains on the romance scams, they might use affinity groups like online prayer groups, book clubs. We had a lady that she started on Words with Friends. A guy was talking to her on Words with Friends. He pulls her over to another site called Google Hangout, where then he began to ask for the payment, and he asked for money because he was in need of money. That particular woman that I was speaking of also had a husband who cared very much about her and did not want her to be befriending this quote lover on the internet. So if they pull you off to Google Hangouts, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, some of those sites, that is a huge indicator that something is wrong. Use Google reverse images, Google the facts you're presented. Google is your friend, folks. You can go online and find out a lot about people, and talk to a trusted friend or family member. Talk to somebody. The romance scammers are the very hardest for us to be able to break away from it. We have a case right now in Southwest Oklahoma, a gentleman who is refusing to even talk to me. A lot of times our bankers will ask them if they will talk to me, and I can tell them my experience or what I've seen in the past, but he's refusing to even talk to me. So just know that the romance scammers, because their heart is involved, they are literally the hardest ones to get around. We had a woman who actually auctioned off her home. We didn't hear about it until she went into the bank and said, hey, I need to know how to put these funds, change these funds into Bitcoin. And the banker said, well, why are you doing that? And she said, well, these are the proceeds from the auction of my home, and I need to get it to my fiance so that he can come into this country. No, no, no. We got hold of her daughter and were able to get it shut down at that point. But had the money gone by Bitcoin, it would have been gone forever. We could not have touched it. Who can help? Adult Protective Services. They are a fabulous group of folks. They used to be cut to the bone. Their staff was really very low. I understand that they are beginning to staff up and they're able to get out there a lot more. So don't hesitate to call and make a report with Adult Protective Services, because they can make some assessments that other people might not be able to do as easily, which I'll go into here in a second. Social engineering is one of the biggest ways that's how people get into our brains. Had a friend that I officed with. She was on Match.com. She was in love with the silver-haired gentleman in another country, taking care of his son in the hospital. All huge red flags. And the first line when I looked at what he had sent her, hi, I'm a gentleman from Oklahoma, Tulsa, which is clearly not how we would say it. But she, as a smart woman, was able to overlook that. That is social engineering. When they have your head so wrapped around something that you want to believe it. We're the weakest link. You can have all the precautions on your computers. You cannot click on links. You can do all those things. And then someone calls you or friends you and you become enamored of them, or whatever ways they can get your mind twisted around it. We are the weakest link. That's how they do it. I have shown them before, so I'm not going to run through the whole video again. But if you're interested in this and haven't seen it, if you go onto YouTube and look for DEF CON and social engineering, you'll get an example where a young man has a lady who's a good person hacker try to get his information. She calls into his phone provider and is able to get his password changed, is able to get everything in the world changed. And that is how easy it is for someone to get into our information. Even if someone is well trained and knows what they're doing in a company, if the hackers can be nice enough, can be urgent enough, if they can get them in their mindset, they can get things changed around. Because of this, because it's so easy to change things in your cell phone, if you have the ability or you know how to do multi-factor so that you get a code before anyone changes something on your cell phone, that is a good thing to do. The text messages are also a growing scam. The texts seem urgent, just don't click it. I just got one yesterday, as a matter of fact. I didn't get time to put it into my presentation, but right here on my phone, what I'm showing you is Elaine, and it names my nephew, shared a photo, and it has a facebook.com looking hyperlink. If I clicked on that, the bad guys could be into my cell phone. It is simply that easy for them to gain access. They could have an executable file. It would give them access to my phone and information. What I did was go on Facebook and see if my nephew actually posted something that he wanted me to see, and clearly wasn't him. And we still have our phones. We can call people and say, did you do this, before you click on it? Don't just click because you're curious, because easy for any of us to do. They do make it seem urgent or fun or something that you really want to see. Check it out first. Now, I was mentioning being able to get hold of the phone companies. There's a thing called SIM swapping, and you have a SIM card in your cell phone, and that's what carries all the information, and that's what has all of your, you can switch over to another phone and put that SIM card in it or transfer that information, and it's you. Your new phone knows you just like your old phone did. The bad guys can do things like calling into your carrier and telling them, oh, I've lost my phone or I got it wet. I need you to change it over to another SIM card. If they have enough information about you to make that happen, what happens is your carrier puts your information over onto the fraudster's phone. So when that happens, the fraudster then has technically your phone. Your phone becomes a brick. So if your phone absolutely stops doing anything, that's something to think about. And what they're able to do with that phone is they're able to get into your, if you have banking information on your phone, if you have anything that they can get into, which is the case for most of us, they can do that. On those cases, if your bank then tried to send a text to say, hey, is this really you trying to get into your account? The text goes to the fraudster. So all of that sounds like a lot of information, but just know this: if someone gets your SIM card changed over to their phone, which is a possible thing for them to do, your phone becomes unusable. So if your phone just becomes unusable, and it's not just you have an old phone and it was time for it to tank, you can check that out. You want to be cautious about any of your bank accounts and investment accounts if and when that happens. Again, two-factor identification, two-factor passwords on your mobile, if you can do that. How do we get into error states? These are the ones that I have long talked about. Greed is a great example of how they can socially engineer and get our minds set to do the fraud. Great example of greed, the lottery scams. Great example of emotion, which the romance scams are the best example of that. And that is the one we see more than anything else. But the grandma, grandpa fraud is also in getting our emotions tied in and getting us rushing to do something to help somebody because we care about somebody that's family, we think, that's in trouble. On the grandparent scam, the obvious thing that I should have said earlier, the easy thing to do is to find that nephew or grandson or whoever is claiming they're in jail. They're not going to be in jail. Do not send anybody money without talking to family, even though they always say don't talk to family. Then finally, fear is the big thing that can get us across. If they can get you scared, the IRS scams, and if they've morphed over to Social Security scams in the last couple of years, it's generally saying, hey, your Social Security has been used by somebody else, so you're going to have to go to jail because they committed some crimes, or you have to send us some money. Well, you don't send money just to get out of crimes. They're going to ask you to send it by gift card or means that don't make sense because the government does not take gift cards. So if you think it through, you're going to be okay. The fear, just like any other thing that people are using to get us into frauds, it's just talk to people, slow down. We are Okies. Just slow down, take your time, check with people, and we'll get it figured out. Talk to your bankers, talk to your family, talk to people that understand and see all these scams all the time. AARP, I was mentioning what a wonderful, powerful partner they have been, especially in the last several years. They have lots and lots of tools on their website. So just by being an AARP member or just by Googling even their information, there's an old video that they have used for a number of years called The Weapons of Fraud, which talk about the persuasion tactics. I love this video. I would encourage you to try to get on and look at that if you have not seen it. They mentioned some other ways that they can get us socially engineered or into their arena. Phantom fixation is what they do with lotteries and sweepstakes. It's like you start thinking about the millions of dollars. Can't tell you how many people I've talked to that say, but Elaine, what if the $30 million really is there for me? What if I'm passing this up? I have to say, no, it is not there. This is not real. But try to pull someone down from that great fixation of it. The more people have thought about it, the worse it gets. It's tough. Social proof, the fraudsters will say, well, everybody's doing this. Your friends and neighbors have bought into this, and that's a way they'll tip us over. They use authority. They might call and say, I'm the bank manager and you have to do this. No, if they say they're the bank manager, you call and get the bank manager. I can't tell you how many times I get calls from people that they say, well, they were FBI. And especially in Oklahoma, I can say, well, give me their name because I know those folks. I will find them and we'll talk to them. Of course, it's not ever going to be a real person. It's just using authority to try to get people on board. One that I find fascinating, because there's a piece of this that can enable me to want something. Scarcity is the thing. If we think that something we really want is in high demand and it's becoming scarce, you might be pushed into doing it. I'm not saying I'm doing it on these kinds of frauds, but I can tell you a great example of that. You go on one of the home shopping channels and you see something, and maybe it's the perfect person. It's exactly the designer purse you wanted, and it's in the color you want, and they'll say, there's only 3 left in teal or whatever color you might be wanting. There's that thing that your heart goes, oh, must have it because there's only 3 left. Maybe I better do it this minute. That's the kind of stuff that gets us tipped over, folks. Reciprocity, we'll give you something and you're going to give us back money. A lot of times they will send you a small amount of money and say, okay, now you're going to have to pay a big amount of money. Similarity or affinity is one of the biggest ways they can tip people over, and that's because affinity is everything. If we believe someone goes to our church, if we think someone is in a group, the Lions Club in our community, if we believe that someone like us is that person that's trying to get this idea or cost or selling something across to you, it's more powerful. We had an occasion in Oklahoma City where a pastor he unknowingly was telling people that they should buy Iraqi dinars, that it was a wonderful investment. Well, it's not. It has never been proven to be a good investment, but because their pastor believed it and was pushing it, that made people sign on, and it made it hard to pull people away from it. Consistency and contrast, those are all detailed in that website. You need to understand financial capacity. We all have the ability to manage and protect our assets, but at some point, our frontal lobe can alter in such a way that our executive function, which is in that red frontal lobe, when it alters, we lack executive function. That means that we lose the capacity to make good business decisions. When that happens to someone, it's not dementia, it's not Alzheimer's, those are diagnosable. This is a harder thing to prove and to assess. The Adult Protective Services, if you think someone is falling for scams and falling for it again and again and again, ask them if they will see, if they believe that person lacks executive function. Those are good words to know, and it's important to try to assess. One of my dear friends who does lack executive function, he's a phone friend. I've never met the man, but Ed from Southeast Oklahoma has fallen for lottery and sweepstakes scams for all the years I've been with OBA for about 18 years now. All that time he's been calling me saying, but this time it's good, but this time he lacks executive function. He will never be pulled back from it because that part of his brain is just not working. A lot of times they were using Western Union wires. Now they're more preloaded gift cards, and that is a way that they're going to ask you to make payments. Other ways they're going to ask you to make payments, and these are things that are red flags if you don't know the person. I use Zelle. Zelle is a peer-to-peer cash transfer. It's a nice way to be able to send money, but I will not send it to somebody that I have never met, anyone that I don't know. I need to know that I'm doing business with that person, or I need to be sending them that money. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, if they're asking you to pay on any of those, the problem with those is this. Even though it's a good way to move money, there's no way for you to know if it was real or not. There's no way for you to say, oh, I need that money back because I sent it to somebody that turns out to be a scammer. There's no pulling it back once it goes. They all have viable uses. You just have to proceed with caution. Also be careful before you accept money, because it could come from someone that they have stolen the money from, and then they're expecting you to send it back or to get the money back to them. That's how they use money mules. You can disable incoming funds and then re-enable it when you want to, if somebody's that you know and trust is sending you money. If you're asked to send money by crypto, wire transfer, or gift card, just run backwards. You might know that there are some issues there. Cryptocurrency is something that we have started to see in these frauds recently. They're asking people to transfer, like the lady that had auctioned her home was asked to transfer it to Bitcoin. Because a lot of us are not so familiar with all the cryptocurrencies, it's a way for them to get us over to a system we're not as familiar with. There are ATMs, there are crypto ATMs, and the fraudsters will actually say, there's one in a particular place in Oklahoma, you should go to it. So, you know, that in itself should be kind of a red flag, because how do they know where the ATMs are, and why are they directing you to them? That should be a red flag. But the crypto is not traceable. So that is one of the big reasons that they're doing that. Crypto is also heavily used in investment scams, and you're going to hear from our Jennifer Shaw, who is absolutely fabulous at securities. That's a great person to talk to if you have any kind of investment scam. I send people to them all the time. Sometimes people do have celebrity endorsements or things that make you want to believe in it. And the FTC has a wonderful piece on investment scams and crypto. So if that's something that you see in your world or you want to check more on, that's available to you. Tech support, if someone says, you get a pop-up a lot of times, hey, you got a problem with your computer, do not trust that. Do not let them into your computer. If you let them in, they can look at and it's fraudsters, they can look at all of your banking information. They can reside in your computer until you have it cleaned. So don't let anyone remote into your computer if you don't absolutely know and trust those people. Just don't let people scare you into it. If you get a pop-up saying, hey, your computer's messed up, hit your power key for a number of seconds until it turns off your computer, and then when you restart it, that pop-up should be gone. So that will help you with that. Just, you're hearing this, you know the stuff, just don't buy into it. There is a wonderful, the April of this year, AARP did a Lessons from Fraud article that is really detailed and great. They mentioned Jim Browning YouTubes where you can see him looking at the fraudsters doing this stuff. And he's talking to people that are, he's seeing people talking to the fraudsters that are saying, I'm afraid I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm scared. You're scaring me. I can't afford this. And the fraudsters are at their place where they're doing their nefarious deeds and just laughing about these people. It's just absolutely maddening. There is a surge in online shopping scams because there's a huge surge since COVID on the online shopping. So just know you can Google it beforehand. I threw in a picture where it was supposed to be these particular shoes, and you can see what they got. There are so many instances of this. I don't ever click on the ad when the ad comes through saying, hey, here's a great thing to buy. I go off the site. If it's the ones that really get me, grandbaby clothes, I'm just telling you, I'm a sucker for that. But I don't click when it comes up on one of my social media sites. I go over to that site and I check reviews. And a lot of times you'll see people going, hey, I never got the stuff. So there are things to watch out for that you can do proactively. You know, phishing, just don't click that link. They've gotten better at the things that they can say they are. We're Netflix and you'll lose your Netflix if you don't click here. Well, you know, that gets a lot of people when you're stuck at home and you're binging something that you don't want to lose your binging on. So just know that that's out there. Another one, Amazon is one of the big ones that they'll send you. Your Amazon is going to be disconnected and you're going to lose everything you've ordered. Don't click on that. Go over to your Amazon account and look and see if there's any truth to it, but don't click on links for that. There are also a lot of Zoom phishing links, so just know that those are out there. Just don't click the link or the attachment. Just think twice about it before you click anything, folks. Password hygiene. Don't give it to other people. Don't just be sure and change it. But here's the thing I really want you to hear. This is the most important thing. Your banking password and investment account password should never, ever, ever be used, or any version of it anywhere else. So that should be a password. If you have to write it down somewhere at the house, that is fine. Password managers are also a great tool. A lot of people use password managers. I'm not recommending one. I know LastPass is a good one. 1Password is a good one, but there are a number of them that work. If you're just using a password manager, that's a help to you, because we all have so many passwords that we're starting to reuse and just use versions of it. Everybody does that. That's just what we do. Password manager makes your world easier. Social media, blessing and a curse. You can click infected links. That someone can try to contact you. This is one I got a few years back, but it's such a great example. I trust LinkedIn pretty much. I use it as a professional site. A lot of people do use LinkedIn for business reasons and to be connected with the right folks. This guy, Mukhtar Menyev, tried to connect with me, and he made the mistake of saying he was an accounting assistant at Oklahoma Bankers Association. Well, folks, we have 12 people, and Mukhtar is not one of them. Our accountant, the office is next door to me, and she's delightful. And no, that is not. He is not an accountant at our place. So here's the thing that I want to mention to you. One of our bankers did click on it. She said, yeah, I'll accept him as a person, because she thought she was being nice, accepting someone from OBA, and she just thought, I just don't know him. So just know that those things are something to be aware of. Don't click without knowing that person, or knowing that they're a real person. Same on Facebook. Jack Barr sent me this thing with his guns on his arm, trying to be a friend. I get these all the time from folks on Facebook trying to become a friend. What you can do is go look at their photos, and you're going to find that they probably have no photos, because they've stolen someone else's pictures that really is in the military. You're also going to find either they have no friends, or all of their friends are people. If you look over on the right-hand side of that, the friends, they're people that this person, the quote Jack Barr, who's not that, is trying to also friend. So it's going to be lots of women that they're trying to befriend. Skimmers, I have a lot of questions on the credit cards and the skimmers. That's always been a thing. The most skimmers have been in the last few years on gas pumps. That's the biggest place that you can use your card and it will be skimmed. But also the number on ATMs has risen dramatically. I just talked with one of my Secret Service task force guys. He said it's all he can do every day to be pulling off these skimmers. There's just so many of them out there. So just know that is still a thing, that it does put your card information at risk. Also know, just to not make you so scared of it, just know that all of our card information is probably out there anyway. It's for sale on the underbelly of the internet. It's out there and people have it. So I don't worry so much about what information gets out there. I worry about looking at my bank statements, my credit card statements, investment accounts. I look at my stuff all the time. As far as the ATMs go, the old school easy way to prevent them getting, because on that you're going to have to put in your PIN when you do it. If you put your hand over the keypad, as you can see, the one on the right is supposed to illustrate. If your hand is hovering over the keypad and then you put in the number, it keeps, they use a pinhole camera that's looking down from the ATM. It's a teeny tiny pinhole, you can't detect it. And that keeps the bad guys from being able to see what numbers you've put in. So put your hand over it. I know it's like exercise to get out of some car. Sometimes it's up high or low. It's hard to do. But still, I'm going to put my hand over it when I put in my PIN at the ATM. Just going to do that. We have a huge upsurge in crypto locker and all the ransomwares. You've probably seen the gas pipeline that just lost their services. In fact, it created a gas shortage all over the eastern part of the U.S. A lot of companies are being hit with ransomware, not as much individuals, but as individuals, the thing to know, or if you have a company, have a good current backup. If you have a backup that you can go to, they lock up all your data, you don't have to worry about it. So just have a good backup. That's the answer to everything on that. Wires. A lot of people believe that if somebody wired money into their account, that it's real money and that they can, quote, go to the bank on it. Not the case, folks, because they can have stolen the money from a company. They do a business email compromise. They wire it to you, use you as a money mule. So they have you send the money out. We have tons of cases of this happening. Talked to a lady outside Massachusetts who had money muled hundreds of thousands, probably into the millions of dollars from folks all over the US. So don't let someone use you and say, I love you and my bank account is closed. We had one guy who said his bank in Washington was totally closed. That is not possible, folks. Banks have closed lobbies during COVID, but you always had the ability to get to your money. That is always the case. That was used a lot in unemployment fraud. We saw a ton of cases in most states. Oklahoma was hit hard on this, where they used our names and applied for unemployment, then sent the money to another state where a money mule then was asked to send it out. So if anyone ever at any point asks you they say it's stimulus money, they say it's unemployment. If anyone sends you money and wants you to wire it out, no, the answer is always no. And if you hear of anyone else doing it, same. FBI has a money mule initiative. I was just made aware a couple of days ago of a money mule that was arrested because they were warned that they were money muling and laundering the money out for the bad guys. They kept on doing it and they finally got arrested. So there are actually criminal cases that can follow this. Don't let anyone be a money mule if you know that it's happening. The faster we know, I had a case where a guy thought he bought a bobcat. He called my office late on a Friday night because I got the information immediately. I could call the bank Saturday morning. I was able to save this young man $17,000 by putting a hold on the money at that bank. The point of all this is the faster we know on a fraud, the more we can do it. FBI is wonderful. Secret Service is wonderful. Our bankers will help us to shut things down, but we have to know it timely because everything goes at the speed of light now because of all the faster payments. So just know that you really have to help us in knowing it faster. The counterfeit cashier's checks are still out there. Just because it's a cashier's check does not mean it's good. Take it to your bank. Same with corporate checks, lots of counterfeits. So take it to your bank, let them help you check it out. Also counterfeit bills, there are some good ones out there now. They can actually do the watermark where you can look through it with a light behind it. You can see the watermark. The bad guys can do that now. So if you need to, take it to your bank and have them help you check it out before you rely on that bill. Our bankers are the best in the West. Our Oklahoma bankers are so well trained on fraud, and every day they're calling me with situations where they're helping a customer or they want me to talk to the customer and help them. And just know we are really fortunate on the senior side. We're also fortunate that everyone in Oklahoma is a mandatory reporter. If you see financial exploitation of a senior or vulnerable adult, doesn't always have to be senior in age, it has to be reported. So just know that I love that we have that ability. And just quickly on the tools, and so we can leave a couple of minutes to answer questions. The Taking Charge book is identity theft book. They change the cover of it from year to year, but FTC has that on their website. Oklahoma Securities has wonderful information. I'm getting a note, Adrian, that the host is ending the session. Is that correct? I'm going to try to click through that.
I'm not trying to. So keep going.
Okay, I'm going to go quickly. Action steps. Set up your MySSA as we discussed earlier. Disconnect if they call. Do not answer the phone. Just let it go to voicemail. Just don't answer the phone. That's the best thing you can do. Have your contacts in your phone so you know who your real contacts are. Talk to your bank or law enforcement. Don't click on random links. Don't answer your phone. Again, share your story with somebody you know. Examples of tools offered, ABA has some great information for seniors. It's not behind a paywall. You can get to it. ABA is our national counterpart, American Bankers Association. MoneySmart for older adults, Save and Invest. There's information on charities, so the sites to go to check out charities, do that. Identity theft booklet, and also managing someone else's money guide. If you're doing a POA or taking care of somebody's money and you have not done that before, these are fabulous and they are free. So don't fail to get those. There's a new book on what older adults should know about financial exploitation. I went through those tools quickly because I know that you can go to YouTube and pull this up and you'll, I think, also get a link to it. So just know you're able to get all this information and to use it. If not, contact me and I'll be glad to help you out with it. So, Ray, do we have questions?
We do have a couple of questions. That was great, Elaine. Quick question on, you were talking about how a great way to research something to find out if it's real or not is to go to Google, and what a great tool that is. However, I've experienced when I've been trying to do research, I get on there and I think something is a legitimate resource and I click on it. And the next thing you know, I'm getting all these ads and people wanting to sell me a product or something. This has really happened to me when I've been researching insurance questions, and suddenly I've got all of these companies that are trying to sell me some product. Are there tools that people can use to look at something when they've Googled a topic? Is there any indicators that would let them know whether or not this is really a good resource to use for that research, and what might be actually just somebody trying to sell them something?
It's almost impossible to know. And we know that all the big tech companies sell our information. So same, you know, I never had a grandbaby till recently, but now all of a sudden that's all they want me to know about is teethers and that kind of stuff. Obviously they know us too well. So if you go on Google, you're going to get those kinds of things. The thing I should have said though, a lot of times the fraudsters will do product placement or link placement where they get to the top of the Google searches. So you really have to look and see if you think that it's an okay place to search. When I click on the link and go to it, I do look at the URL and which is all the stuff at the top. And if that doesn't make sense, then I'm not going there.
Okay. All right, next question. Early in your presentation, you talked about having someone on your bank account as a signer on your bank account. Is there ever a time when you really have to be in that position? I'm thinking in terms of if you're a caregiver for a loved one or something like this, or you're trying to protect someone, and is there ever a time when that is really necessary versus just having a power of attorney or some other thing like that? As I recall, someone in a previous presentation had said, if you are a signer on a bank account, you're also responsible for the debts associated with that account. So if it becomes overdrawn or something like that, it puts you in that liability position. So is it actually better just to rely on the power of attorney or something like that, as opposed to becoming a signer on the account?
If you can rely on the power of attorney, you have that, then that is probably your better way to go. I agree. But it's really important for the bank to know that person also, beyond just being the power of attorney. I would also go up and talk to my banker and say, listen, I'm helping with my mom and I need you to help me know if anything's going on. The problem is the bank cannot tell even a daughter, if I'm not on that account, the bank cannot share that account information with me. So there are times that it depends on their mental ability. There are times where somebody has to be on the account so that somebody can sign for it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I know that there's a similar thing with insurance claims and such, where even if a person has power of attorney, the insurance company may not talk to that individual about their loved one. They're going to, there's a form that they require that they have on file that says, I give this person permission to speak to you about my insurance coverage. And that's been a source of frustration for some of the family members that we've dealt with. So I get what you're saying. So is there a similar document that the bank can have on file?
Well, I'm trying to promote the trusted contacts because I'm jealous that investment companies can do a trusted contact. So why can't we have a trusted contact that says explicitly to the bank, this is a family member or somebody I trust with, if I'm being scammed or you're worried about something, you are allowed to talk to them. Now, we have an end around pretty easy. We can, if the bank files a SAR, suspicious activity report, they can then contact law enforcement, and we can get, you can also make an adult protective services, because you're a mandatory reporter, you can make an adult protective services report, separate deal. Either of those allows law enforcement and or APS to reach out to family. So we have perfected how to make it happen in a bad situation, but I wish we could get something where it's seamless and easier for people.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Hope we can do this again in the future. Wanted to remind everybody, well, first, thank you so much for joining us today. We have 2 more sessions coming up with this round of Hoodwinked conferences. Jennifer Shaw is going to be with us next Thursday on June 10th. She's going to be talking about investment fraud. She'll talk about some of the same things we've heard about today and how people get you to invest in some of these scams that they say are going to make you so much money. And she'll be sharing with us about that. And then, as Adrian pointed out at the beginning, Frederick Lohman, who is with the, what is the name of that? The insurance, hang on, I'm going to scroll up here so I can get this gentleman's title correctly. He is with the National Insurance Crime Bureau. He's going to be talking about contractor fraud, which is another thing that people, especially here in Oklahoma, where we typically have had a lot of storm damage and things like that, what these contractors might try to do to take advantage of you. So we hope you can join us for that one as well. So if you're interested in signing up, you can sign up the same way you signed up for this one. Go to our website at oid.ok.gov and click on the Hoodwinked emblem and you can sign up there. So we appreciate everybody joining us today. Hope to see you again next week. Thanks.